Hello, Lauren. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Great to be here.
Great to have you. I'm really excited. So, by now, by the time that people are listening to this episode, they know that you are one of our featured guest speakers at our upcoming SheIGNITES event. And we are so thankful and excited to have you join us. And we're just excited to get to know you today and to get to know a little bit more about the history and the story of who you are and how you came to be the amazing, incredible, multifaceted, super successful Lauren Lake.
Okay, all that. All right.
All that. So take us back to the beginning. Take us on the journey of your childhood and growing up and just how you kind of got started with creating this path for your life of living limitlessly.
Well, I'll tell you, and I can take it all the way back to Detroit, Michigan. I'm born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. I am the daughter of two educators. My father and my mother, both their entire careers were in education. My mom, a professor on the collegiate level. My father, a doctor of speech and language pathology for the Detroit Public Schools. And so I grew up in a school, in an age where schooling and education were at the forefront of what I think people believed it took to live a limitless life, right? And so I set out on that path. And I think that's kind of where I got on the fast track of going to college and then ultimately going to law school. But I was always a zany kid. And I was always that kid that was, doing 99 things at once. And I credit my parents for allowing me to do that, right? So I might have been in the school play, but then I was also in some nonprofit organization out, trying to save the world. But then I was also on the pom-pom squad and then also passionate about this and then changing my room around every week because I needed to look different. And, and then I had things to say about their parenting and why they parent the way they do. I was really all over the place. And again, I credit their strength for allowing me the space to kind of own who I was and figure out who I was, right? And look, they had rules because when I was like 15, I had decided, I think I had seen the movie Fame. I'm telling my age now, that one with Debbie Allen back in the day. And honey, I was not going to college then. I was going off to New York because I was going to be on Broadway and I was going to do this. And they were like, just let us know which colleges you're applying to. So they had their boundaries for me. Yeah. But I think it really led me to kind of develop this limitless approach to life, which back then I didn't understand what that was. Mm-hmm. I'll fast forward a little bit. I ended up going to law school, but during law school, I sang in a band as a way to pay my way through law school. I sang weddings, funerals. I ain't ashamed to say it. If you needed a song, I was going to sing it as long as you paid me. But again, it kind of helped me on this journey of a life that didn't have a linear right approach in the way that people think. I was always a little over here and a little over here. And it seemed like as long as I had the band to sing in, I felt okay with law school. Like one without the other, I think maybe I would have been missing. I was equally as artsy as I was academic. Yeah. And so when I got done with law school, I immediately decided, I don't want to go work for a law firm. I don't want to do that. I want to be able to sing in the band on the weekends. I want to be able to kind of carve out my own life. I immediately opened my own practice. And I really took that leap of faith because it served me. And in the way that I chose to live my life. And look, people always looked at me like, what are you going to do, girl? What are you going to be? And it's like, I'm going to be me. I am going to be every part of who I am. And I say that to say, because as I've grown through this life journey, I've noticed that those little pieces of me that I refuse to let go of are the very pieces of me that allow me to be successful when I don't know what to do in a certain situation, when times get tough, when everything falls apart, when there's an obstacle before me. It's because I held on to those pieces of me, the rebel, right? The artist, the creative, the academic. I held on to it. I didn't let the world and I didn't let society break down and be able to pick off the pieces of me that they think I didn't need anymore. And I had a lot of people say that to me as a lawyer. Well, what are you going to choose? Right. I ended up having a show on HGTV. Long story short, here, I was a lawyer and I was also a background singer. And I was singing for, gosh, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre,
Wow.
Daddy. I used to sing background professionally, right? And I was still a young practicing attorney. And I really loved just, again, the yin and yang of having that artistic feel versus also being a voice for the voiceless and helping people understand and be empowered through the law. But people would say to me all the time, so what are you going to end up being? A singer or are you going to be a lawyer? And I would always say, why do I have to choose? Can I just be all that I am? And the rebel in me began to say, okay, well, I'm going to be more things, right? Because guess what else I love to do? Design houses. So a best friend, a woman, a best friend, my girlfriend that I met, actually, she was my realtor. When I moved to New Jersey, she and I love to design houses. And one day we were just having a lunch and we were like, we just spend way too much money out here in these streets buying stuff for our houses. And everybody asks us, where do we get our things from? You know what we should do? We should start a business. And the next person that asks us where we got a certain piece, we'll say, we design homes and we're going to do it. And we sat there and we started a small business that grew into a large business. That then led me to having a show on HGTV. So just when everyone was sick of me saying that I was a lawyer and a singer, I said, you know what? Let's make them even more mad and add designer in there because that's
I love it.
Facet of me, right? That I love, that I've had since I was a child, that my room has always set the stage for my mood. I always say your home and your room is your launching pad and your landing pad. And the way it looks and the way it feels is important to the trajectory of your day, right? The way in which you launch. And I had no formal experience, honey, but I wasn't scared because I went into that audition. And at first, I'm not going to lie, I was like, these people look like they're really designing a lot of houses in here. They had the big old black, portfolios. And ooh, I might embarrass myself, my parents, and my ancestors, but I'm here now. And I went through the door with all that I am. And they asked me, how did I become a designer? And I told them, well, I'm technically not. I am just a person who sees things. I sit in empty rooms and I see things. And they said, really? And I'm like, this is how I design. Long story short, I get that show, 6 seasons on HGTV, Spice Up My Kitchen. And again, living out those limitless possibilities. So I've just never stopped being that. Even as judge of Lauren Lake's Paternity Court, I still bring my love for family, the law, entertainment, right? Because television is a form of entertainment. I bring every piece of me together to kind of arrive in a space where I can show up and give my gifts. So I hope I answered your question, but I kind of
and then some. It was great.
I tried to do a little long line approach.
It was perfect. We got like a scope of the full arc, I feel like, of the evolution. And there's so much of that is just so inspiring because there is this sense of like people having to choose or people not taking that creative side or the side that maybe feels risky to other people. And they try to force you into where their comfort zone is and where they really want to see you so that they're not uncomfortable with us living how we want to be living. And so it's just really an incredible testament to us as women here. We have, our audience is female entrepreneurs and women that are looking to level up in their careers within an organization. And it's just very powerful to adopt that concept. So thank you for modeling that for us. And it's
That's
just really quite amazing.
Limitless approach.
Yeah.
I always say the only box I'm getting in is in my grave. Don't let them put you in a box.
Did you ever struggle with that? So as you're kind of coming into a time where, you're in more of a spotlight, right? Like going from Detroit, Michigan to at some point you mentioned New Jersey, and then you moved to LA. You're getting in front of the camera more. You're having these different opportunities. People are giving their professional opinions on what they would like to see of you. Did you ever feel pressured or like, maybe I shouldn't do all of these things and maybe I should try to fit more into a mold that somebody else wants me to be in?
Yes, absolutely. Heather, I can remember a time I was doing a lot of guest hosting and I was doing a lot of pundit work on legal news channels, talking about the law, talking about legal cases. And I remember a very high ranking executive for one of the legal news channels calls me into the office. And they basically say to me, we're really interested in you kind of continuing on here, interested in you potentially, becoming an anchor, filling in more. And I got excited because I'm thinking, oh, this is interesting. This is fun, right? I really love breaking the law down for people. And then they say, but about that show on HGTV, because I had already done that, when will that be ending? Ending? I'm hoping it's going to keep going on.
Right.
This is how I pay my bills. This is part of the love of who I am. And they just simply look at me and say, because people will not take you seriously as a news anchor and a legal news anchor if you also have a design show on HGTV. And it was like, it was like right through the dagger through the heart, because everything I had stood for, everything that I believed in, all of a sudden it was a person saying, we don't care anything about your limitless life, right? We need you to fit in this limited perspective of what we think you need to be successful here. And I remember walking away because I had gotten so excited about the potential of that job and really feeling like a blow to my spirit, because I wanted to do that job. I really wanted to take on that new role of anchor. And I always tell people this as I talk about coaching throughout the country. Be careful who you surround yourself with and make sure you are surrounded by a group of people who know, love, and honor who you are truly. Because it was in those moments that my crew, my people came and surrounded me. And each one, as I reported what happened in that meeting, was like, screw that. You know what I mean? Like, no, you're not gonna, they almost gave me back the energy that I had put out into the world for so long when I felt like I wasn't sure, or when I felt like, well, maybe this whole limitless life has now cost me this really good opportunity. They were like, no, forget that. You are exactly who you are. Why would someone not take you seriously because you also know how to design a beautiful kitchen? That means you're not a good lawyer? Forget that. And it really made me feel comfortable about not getting that opportunity and continuing to live out the full breadth of who I was.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it opened the doors for other opportunities to come.
Yes.
That may have not been there if you would have chose to shut everything else out and just kind of take
exactly
that path. Right. I'm interested to know what attracted you to becoming a lawyer. There's all this creative stuff that you do. You're so talented in so many different ways. And then there is this more kind of like what I would, when I think of like attorneys and the laws, like a more of an analytical place where there's maybe not a lot of creativity. Thankfully, I don't have a lot of experience with the law, so that's my perception. But what drew you and attracted you to that route of becoming a lawyer?
Okay, so this is the real true story. I really went to college to be an anesthesiologist. And I was pre-med through most of my college career and got to a place where we started doing hospital visits and doing things and just kind of, I was on different school trip things. And it just dawned on me that I think I'm too emotionally attached to really do this. Like, the hospital really brings me low spiritually. Like, I'm taking on this energy that I feel like, if I can't save everybody, or what if I fail, or what if I don't know if I really want to do this day in and day out. And I had to be very honest. Well, growing up with the parents I grew up with, when I called them to say, hey guys, you know what? I don't think I really want to be a doctor anymore. I think after I get done with college, I'm going to go to New York and I'm going to really try to be a professional singer. They were like, so hang up. And we understand how you feel and call us back tomorrow and tell us what you're going to do next. Again, not knowing anything but, my parents are just basically saying, think of something else. I thought of law school because I said to myself, what other avenue do I feel like my gifts and my talents could be of best use? As you can see, I am a talker. I have a gift for gab. I get that from my mother and father. But I also have a theatrical, I think, knack, a natural ability to tell a story. And that's the part of the law I fell in love with, which is telling a story for someone better than they could tell it for themselves, which would potentially lead to their legal resolution, the legal resolution of their issue, or a second chance if that's what they needed. As a criminal defense attorney, I often argue to give someone a second chance who I believe really deserved it. And also to be a voice for people who cannot speak for themselves. And that's really where I fell in love with it. It was a funny thing in law school where everybody would just be on pins and needles and nervous for, trial advocacy, that class, when you finally had to kind of stand up in the moment and really try a case, honey. I was fully dressed. I had on a cute shirt. I was like, this is my day, let's get in this courtroom.
I'm ready.
And I'm ready. Let's do this. Because listen, in many ways, the courtroom is a stage, right? Your audience is the jury, the judge, the gallery. You're in there trying to make people listen to the side of the story that you're presenting and the law and the way in which you see the law applies to it. And so I think, again, interesting enough, me kind of being that performer throughout my legal career almost led to me becoming a better lawyer because I was prepared for that moment. So that's really how I fell in love with it, and then ultimately began to do more family law and got passionate about children and families and how that works, which led to Paternity Court.
Yeah. When did that opportunity come about? At that time, you had already had your HGTV show.
Yes.
You'd been doing some type of TV. How did that, because this is your longest standing show, right? Longest running show. Yeah. And so it's had wild success. We're big fans in our household. And yes. So tell us about how that opportunity came about. Was that something that you sought out? Did it come to you?
No.
Tell us about that journey.
The creator and executive producer, David Armour, just called me on the phone one day and he's like, I'm going to do a show with you one day. I'm like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
And he calls back like several months later, like, I have an idea. And he tells me the idea. And I'll tell you, my first instinct was, what you talking about, Willis? I went straight to, very calm and like, what? A paternity, what? Because again, after working for so many years trying to empower families, trying to help families overcome obstacles and empower them with the law, I didn't want to be in a situation where we were in any way exploiting families or where we were dealing with paternity in the ways we had seen it been dealt with on TV before, where it was just a lot of, oh, I'm not the daddy, hallelujah. I didn't want that. And he says, no, what I really need, and this is why I'm asking you to be the judge, is because I want someone to bring a level of honor and respect to the courtroom around families and fatherhood. And I'm a daddy's girl, although I'm super close to my mom as well. She's passed away, but I'm just ultra daddy's girl. And I know what my life means because of the relationship I've had with my father. And I said, listen, if I can bring me to the table and all you're doing is asking me to bring me, I'm in, and they have allowed me the space to do that so much, where the question of are you or are you not the father on our show is just one part of the aha moment. And they've really left room for me to be able to dig in with people and say, now that you have the truth, what are you going to do with it? Where is it going to take you? How will it ignite, right? That next level of living for you. And so I've been very proud of that and super proud that we ended up winning the Emmy a couple years ago for Best Legal Courtroom Show. So really proud of the work we've done.
Congratulations. And it's really well done. Like I said, we're big fans. So we watch it every day, actually. We watch episodes. It's literally like our lunchtime, like little
I love it.
And yes, it's awesome. Then there's this other than next chapter. Paternity Court is going well. There's still all these things that you're involved in. And then there came this, or it's been there, but then there was this developed opportunity that you took to empower women in the
Yes.
entertainment industry and on TV. Talk to us a little bit about that transition as well
Yeah.
and what
Well,
you're doing with that.
again, the power of women. I think you'll see a reoccurring theme in my life, like whether it was, my desire to create a design company, interior design company with a girlfriend. The same thing happened. Several girlfriends, we were in a room one day, just at one of our girlfriends' houses. And it was during a time when there had been some very disparaging remarks made about the Rutgers women's basketball team. And we thought to ourselves, who's speaking for women? Like, who's going to empower the women here? Who's going to let them know this isn't? And it's like, well, if you got to ask who's going to do it, then you need to look at yourself. And so myself, Valicia Butterfield Jones, Christy Henderson, and Sabrina Thompson, we decided to create the Women in Entertainment Empowerment Network. And what we did is we brought together a group of young women. We would have auditions each year for our academy. And out of 300 to 400 girls auditioning, we picked 25 and we put them in this boot camp of all of these types of experiences that you would have in the entertainment business to help prepare them to live out their dreams. And so, gosh, we did that we actually made this year our last year, but we actually did this for 11 since 2007. So 13 years, 11 years of the Academy. And it was a wonderful way to help women really take that step right into their possibilities and understand what's out there for them in entertainment.
Incredible. And I'm sure that everyone was just so thankful. What a breath of fresh air. The support hasn't been there for us before. We're learning things we didn't even know we needed to learn.
Yes.
We're figuring out the evolution of ourselves when we didn't even know these things were possible.
That's it.
Just powerful.
And we gave them everything we didn't have, right? Everything we had to stumble in the dark to figure out, we tried to give it to them. That doesn't mean there's going to be a cakewalk, but it means that we have women supporting women, right?
Right.
That we are giving them. And look, we didn't make it easy. Trust me, we weren't around their hand holding. This was a boot camp. So it was tough.
Yeah.
We were tough on them and it was tough to get through. But when you're talking about being in the entertainment industry, you need to be prepared.
Yeah. Yeah. And also opening up that conversation and just like that mindset and the awareness. So yes, the journey and the road still needs to be traveled, but at least they're prepared with some of that foundational mindset work when going into it.
We
that
always
you guys
say
provided.
Right. We always say we prepare you for your worst boss, for your devil wears Prada moment. We got you. By the time you get to that moment, you're going to be like, oh, this lady. Okay. Or, oh, this man. Oh, we know how to do that. Like, that's what we prepare you for. And we also prepare you to be an entrepreneur, right? To step out on faith and also invest in your own dreams.
Right. Which is something that you've modeled just beautifully for those around you and for us here in our audience when we get to go live on March 19th. I'm so excited. I know. So let's talk about that for a moment. What, obviously, there's so many inspiring messages and the overall theme of being able to live limitlessly. What else can our guests and attendees expect to hear from you on that day?
Well, I think we're going to go deeper, right? Before we go forward. And I think we're going to really dig in about the very things that hold us back as women, right? And where we are often positioned in society and what that looks like for us and the burdens that we carry, often the baggage of the expectations and the labels that are placed upon us that we have to be very honest about us wearing. I often think about, I used to be a Girl Scout and how we so proudly put those badges on our sash and we wear them, right? And I feel like for women, we still do that a lot. We wear these badges of responsibility and expectation and all of those things, but we have to ask ourselves, are those things weighing us down or are they propelling us forward, right? Do they dim our light or do they ignite our fire and flame? And so I really want to go into that. We also want to talk about our capes, those superwoman capes we wear that honestly, quite often they choke the living life out of us. And we have to be honest and be okay with taking that cape off, with not always having the answer or the solution or being the fixer. I think we need to go deep first before we can ignite those limitless possibilities. And so those are the things that we're going to talk about. Fear, right? Fear. Living a limitless life is not about living without fear. It's about learning how to overcome the fear. We all have it, but it's about learning how to overcome it. So I think that's what I'm excited about doing is going deeper. I mean, and like with any fire, I love that, this thought about igniting something, a flame, right? Because with any fire, whatever, you're always tending to it underneath, right? To get that fire going, to keep it going, right? So we want to
that's
build something
good.
underneath. Yeah. That's what I've been thinking about. And I'll have more by the 19th of March.
That's perfect. I'm sitting here just, again, so inspired. I keep using that word today, but that's just like the word that just keeps coming to mind. And I'm thinking about our listeners and thinking about them listening in the car or at the gym or wherever they might be listening to our podcast. And I know that for some people, thinking about just even kind of getting started, it feels pretty daunting and it feels overwhelming. And I just would wonder if you had like maybe even one or two tips of advice on just like how to get started with adopting this mindset. Where would you kind of guide women that are feeling a little stuck right now?
Sure. I think you start at passion and purpose. Passion and purpose. And I think it's something as women, we don't get enough time to really deeply think about what our passions are and our purpose, because the way we are positioned in society, once we become mothers and wives and partners and girlfriends and all the things we become, that so closely gets aligned with what our purpose becomes, we forget about who we are even outside of those roles. And again, going back to the childhood stories, when people ask me about my childhood, it's always a pleasure for me to recount those stories, because when I do, I ignite that little girl, that little Lauren, that one that just refused to just cave in or be put in the box, the one that always fought back, the one that was ready to get on everyone's nerves because she just had a new idea. And I want to keep her alive, right?
Yeah.
And so I think going back to the passions and the purpose of who you are and knowing that those things are worthy and that you are worth overcoming the fear that separates you from a limited mindset and a limitless mindset. So I think that's what I'd say, is to really start digging deep. What are you passionate about? Do you know? If you don't know, that's okay. Start thinking about what are the things that you feel so completely you when you're a part of. I don't care if it's animals, cookies, math. I don't care. Just think about what it is. Where do I feel like I never want to leave?
Right.
And begin to think about, how do I align my passion and my purpose, right? And because we can go deeper into that later, but I do think it's a deep study, because I can't tell you how many people say to me, I don't know what my passion is. 30, 40, in their 50s, 60s. I really don't know what my passion is. I'm passionate about my family. Great. What else? What were you passionate about before you had a family? Right? That's okay. The acknowledgement and living in that moment alone is so powerful, because it allows you to think and go back. Where do I sit, as I said, and I never want to leave? What parts of my life, which moments, which experiences, what type of service would I provide for free if I never got paid a dime? What would I do? What part of my life would I give of my spirit? Those things begin to align you with your passion and your purpose.
Yeah. I want to expand a little bit on the statement that you just made about living in that moment alone. And I do find that oftentimes when people are unsure of what their passions are, it's because there's so much noise around them that they don't really have the time to hear what it is that's trying to speak to them. And I can speak for that myself. And when I ended up in a time that I didn't anticipate, when I went through my divorce, and then all of a sudden no longer had my kids every single birthday or holiday of theirs, or, we just had split time.
Yeah.
And I found myself just spending so much more time by myself. And that was the silver lining for me of, like, in this really hard time, it was only then when things were quiet and I had enough space that I was able to realize like, I'm hearing something inside me speaking, and I'm going to start to lean into that and listen.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to expand on that a little bit, because I do think that there is so much noise around us that that's oftentimes the best place to start, is just find some quiet by yourself.
And I love that you said it, because sometimes our greatest pains, our hugest transitions, the moments where we feel most off our square or uncomfortable are the very moments when the best listening can happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you really see who you are, right?
Yeah.
What's that saying? Dr. Martin Luther King said it, and I'm paraphrasing, but they always say the measure of a man or woman, we will say, is not during the times of comfort and convenience, but conflict and controversy. I think it's conflict and controversy or something like that. But what it really means is you really see who you are when things are off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid of those moments. Lean into them, sit with yourself, have that cry, have that woman in the mirror conversation. Just listen to yourself, because sometimes, like you said, the noise of our lives, of responsibility, expectation, opinions, labels, and all of that, they'll drown us out from hearing ourselves. You know, there's that saying, I got to hear myself think. Right?
Yes.
I gotta even be able to hear myself talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear myself. So I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that's at play, especially during this time where there's this almost this lens that we're looking at that's not really clear, where it appears, because things have, as of a year now, stopped resuming as they were before, how we have all this more time and we're at home more. There's like this layer that I feel like is this lens that is really distorted, where people do feel like, because they're not out and about and they're more isolated, that they are alone, but there's still so many more responsibilities. I know, especially for the women in our community, because there's just so much more on their plate now, that we're just becoming accustomed to it. But there's this lens of, but I do have more time and I am alone, but it's not really the case, because there's all these other sorts of things that have crept in. And so I just wanted to also elaborate on that as well.
Women have taken the biggest hit during this pandemic, and we know it. We know it. Many of us had to put our careers aside, our dreams aside. We had to do a lot. And I think this is, this conference, I'm so happy you're doing this. It's coming around right at the right time, because we have to band together and we have to support one another. We have to lift one another up, and we've got to ignite our flames, right? I really love this. It's no different than the way you light the candle on your kid's cake, right?
Right.
One flame lights the next. You light one and then you just go around. Kudos to you for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Lauren, this was great. I'm so thrilled that our audience has a chance to get to know more of your history and background. And again, just all of the things that have contributed to your journey before they get to hear you on our virtual stage here on March 19th. So thank you so much for your time. In the meantime, as they're listening, how can they connect with you? Which social platforms do you enjoy the most? Let us know where our audience can follow you.
Sure. You can follow me at Lauren L. Lake. Don't forget the middle L, because the L is for Limitless.
Yes.
Lauren L. Lake on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, everywhere. And also at laurenlake.com, my website. So let's stay in conversation and listen. Like I said, we're in this thing together. So I'm excited to continue the conversation in March. And I'm so grateful that you guys are having me.
Thank you.